So like we said, Elena and I are polar opposites. And that might be what attracted us to one another. We probably thought we could fix each other. She was like, that man, he's got the good looks, he's got the personality. He just speaks a different language, but I can whip him into shape, right? Same here. She's a perfect woman. Maybe I could teach her a few things along the way.
Wanted to disciple me.
But you know what? 9.5 years later, we are still as polar opposite as we were 9.5 years ago. And so with that comes the responsibility of learning each other's idiosyncrasies, being able to get along together. So 5 ways to get along with your spouse. Here we go. Number 1, speak their language. This is huge. Early in marriage, this was something that was a game changer for me. Most of you are probably aware of a book by Gary Chapman called The 5 Love Languages. If you have never read the book, I encourage you, when this video is done, hop on Amazon and download it, The 5 Love Languages. Basically, there are 5 love languages: acts of service, quality time, gifts, physical touch, and words of affirmation. Now, our love tanks are filled when our partner begins to speak our love language, so to speak. So Elena's love languages are...
What are they?
Words of affirmation, physical touch, and probably quality time too. But I would say those are your 2 primary love languages. And when I, as a spouse, speak those languages to her, it fills her love tank.
It does.
What are my love languages?
Nathan has one primary love language, and it is acts of service. And it took me 3 years into our marriage to finally figure it out, because I would ask him, what's your love language? And he's like, you should know. And if you haven't figured it out by now, you should know. And I'm like, I don't know. And so I'm trying to show him love by physical touch. And he's like, ah. And so I finally realized it was acts of service. And then also I would say quality time.
So find out what your spouse's love language is and speak their love languages. Elena's an extrovert. I'm an introvert. She's all physical touch. I am like, leave me alone. But I realized that it's important for me to be able to speak her language. So as hard as it might be, as unnatural as it might be for me to be all googly goggly physical touch, just sometimes I have to be, because that's my wife's love language. And, if I don't go out of my way to speak her language, then it's not good.
It's not good.
So speak your spouse's love language. I would also say on the flip side, if your spouse, let your spouse speak their language as well. For example, physical touch, it doesn't necessarily fill my love tank, so to speak. It's not my love language. But when Elena is displaying, that physical touch or the words of affirmation, though I'm not one necessarily to need the words of affirmation all the time, I have to recognize when she's speaking it to me, because she's going out of her way to speak a love language. And though it's not, necessarily the language I receive or that fills my love tank, I honor, what, she's going out of her way to love me right now. And vice versa. When I do the acts of service for Elena, though that's not primarily her language, she's good about hey, thank you for doing that. I realized that was a big sacrifice for you. You know who's great at acts of service?
Who's that?
Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
They go out of their way. They are above and beyond.
That's
true. And I love when people go out of their way to do kind things for me. So when I say thank you and they're like, my pleasure, I love it. It fills my love tank. And if they don't say my pleasure, then I'm going to Mickey D's.
All right. Mickey D's don't have anything on Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich, though.
Speak their language, number 1.
Speak their language. Another thing that kind of goes along with number 1, before I jump over to number 2, is, speak their language and learn them. Learn who they are. Learn how they work. I know for me, the personality tests are always really helpful for me. I initially take the personality test to figure out what I am, but I will always have Nathan take them. And so I can kind of figure out how his brain works. And so when he does something or doesn't do something, I can understand more fully where he's coming from with that and not see that through the lens of how I'm wired. So speak their language, super, super important. Number 2, this helped us so much. It's have clear-cut roles. So it was really funny when Nathan and I first got married. Some of our biggest arguments were at the grocery store, and that is so dumb. Like, if you think about it, I remember like there was a time when he like walked out and waited in the car for me because we were arguing at the grocery store because I'm like a big time snacker, and Nathan likes structured meals. Like, what meals are in this cart right now? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna eat snacks all day.
We could drop like $300 in groceries, and we will have like one lunch, but mostly just really bomb snacks.
Exactly. Is anybody else a big snacker? Oh my gosh. So we would have these big issues at the grocery store, and it felt so like dumb and like unimportant. But so Nathan found the solution, and he's like, I'm going to be in charge of all the grocery shopping now, and I'm going to do it all online.
No, it wasn't being like a tyrant. She still gets her bomb snacks.
So here's what we do now.
Instacart. This is not a sponsored post. This is not an
Instacart.
advertisement.
Oh my gosh, that will help you so much.
Game changer. It'll save your marriage.
So, and it'll save you money. So before he places the order online, he'll send me a text and say, what do you want from the grocery store? And so because I'm not in the grocery store and I'm not seeing everything, it's like super easy and we could just figure it out. So that's one thing, is to have clear-cut roles.
I'm the grocery guy.
Even though Nathan's the husband and traditionally like the wife would be the grocery girl, like he's the grocery guy. And it's like, it's okay and it works for us. And then another issue, so basically find clear-cut roles surrounding where you're having issues. So another place that we would have issues is when it comes to like cleaning up the house, right? And so I've basically come to the point where I'm like, I am the person that cleans the house. Obviously, Nathan cleans up after himself and all of that. But when it comes to like all the stuff, I told him to make this easier, that is my role and it's okay. And I'm not offended by that because he's doing a whole other set of things. He does all of the money. He does all of that stuff. He does like he pays for our car tags. Like, he's just that guy, the responsible one, because I will forget. And so have clear-cut roles and it really will help. That's all I got for that.
All right.
Point number 2.
Number 3. Look, I wrote my notes on an envelope. I am my mother's son. What can I say? Don't put unrealistic expectations on your spouse. This is number 3. Do not put unrealistic expectations on your spouse. And what I mean by that, for example, I recently had a conversation with someone, and they were saying like, they're not happy, with their spouse. That's actually a common thing to hear a lot of times when couples are like on the brink of divorce or just divorced. They'll always say like, I don't know when it happened. Just one day I woke up and like I realized I was not happy. Well, I guarantee you it didn't happen overnight. It didn't just happen. But likely what that really translates into, and I know there are some extreme circumstances, I'm not saying this fits everything, but I have found that a lot of times people aren't happy when they put unrealistic expectations on their spouse, such as, my wife is my source of happiness. It's her job to make me happy. She's my source of joy. Like if she's not doing, if I'm not happy, then she's not a good wife and she's not doing her job, right? I want to share a couple scriptures out of the Bible. 1 Corinthians 8:6, part of it says, yet for us, there's only one God, the Father, who is the source of all things. So Father God is your source of joy. He's your source of happiness. He's your source of hope. And you cannot unrealistically put those things on your spouse, make that her or his job. Because if you make an idol out of your spouse, try to make them God, I promise you will feel let down. You will feel disappointed. And one day you'll wake up and be like, I'm not happy.
Right.
Because you're expecting your spouse to do or fill a role in your life that only God can fill. Philippians 4:19 says, and my God will liberally supply your every need according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. So don't put unrealistic expectations on your spouse. They're not God. Obviously, there are things that we do to respect each other. We go out of our way to speak each other's love languages, but ultimately, God is your source.
That's good. I like that. What number are we on? Number 4.
4.
Okay, number 4 I wrote down is that words are important. And so, when we go into an argument, right? We all have arguments, disagreements. When we go into the argument, our bottom line has to be preserving the relationship, right? I'm not going into an argument to blow up a relationship. I'm going in to work through a challenge and come out of that relationship stronger. And so our words are super duper important. And so one thing I want to really challenge every single person that's watching this is do not use the D word. You know, the D word is the divorce word. Like Nathan said, there are obviously like super extreme cases where like safety is involved, there's abuse, things like that. That's another story. But when we're talking about, working through our issues, we don't have to throw that word in there. And because what that does is it creates a mistrust and it brings space between you, and it's very hard to bring that back together. It takes a lot more time to build that trust again. Another thing about words is that we don't want to like character assassinate someone when we're having an argument. You always do blank, blank, blank. You're so blank, blank, blank. We want to try as much as we can to focus on the actual issue there. So when you did this, it made me feel like this, or when you did this, blank, blank, blank. We don't want to blanket statement someone and say, you're so rude, you're so, this and that. Because again, the goal of this argument or this disagreement is to solve it, right? And so words, you can't take your words back. Your words are going to be out there whether you meant them in the moment or not. And so if you're the type of person that you're hot-headed and you just let those words fly when you're mad, go shut yourself in the bedroom for 10 minutes and calm down before you present yourself to that argument again. Because words are important and they do damage. And so you want to use them carefully and kind of keep your gloves on when you're fighting. So
Yeah. Number 5, here we go. Don't be so easily offended. Don't be so easily offended. When Elena and I received marriage counseling, our good friend and then pastor, shared with us this completely mind-blowing, truth, both having been single and then getting together. It just kind of like blew our mind. But it was that everybody is raised and everyone is brought up in obviously different families, different backgrounds. And as adults, we all have different normals, right? What's normal to me isn't what was normal to Elena. And not that one was right or wrong or one was better. They were just different, right? Different normals. And so, for example, Elena might communicate in a way that I felt was disrespectful because my normal was, if you use certain words or tones or volume levels, then you were out for blood. Maybe not that extreme. I was really petty. I might be still a little petty, but I was a whole lot of petty earlier on. And for Elena, being brought up in a different environment, different household, if I may share a little bit of upbringing, didn't have a man in the house. So to me, it's like everything she said and did was like degrading to me as a man, didn't value me as a man, didn't, honor me as a husband or a man, where that wasn't her intention at all. She had an absolutely different normal. You're like, what? Am I going somewhere I shouldn't?
I don't care. I'm just like, where are you going?
That's a totally different normal. And I had to realize that because she would say or do things with pure intention, not meaning to be rude or anything at all, but I would get all so offended and butt hurt because I had a different normal and I didn't realize. So anyways, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just think it kind of goes back to your first point of like speaking their language. Like when you really know them and where they're coming from, you realize that like maybe how they said something or what they did, it's not a direct attack against you as a person, as a man, as a woman, and I think really what it comes down to is like not getting offended, being so offendable. I know for us ladies, I'm sorry if this is pushing your buttons, but there's certain times of the month where you're just a little more offendable and we have to recognize that about ourselves.
Got nothing to say about that.
And you have to recognize that about yourself. And just honestly, if you're at that place, communicating and saying, you know what, I'm kind of sensitive right now, so just letting you know I'm a little extra sensitive right now. And that warning alone can save and diffuse so much.
All right. Anything to add?
That's 5 right there.
That is 5 right there. We have more. I think we're going to come back on tomorrow. Same place, same time, 4 p.m. So we would love to see you. Join us for the next 5 ways to get along with your spouse. It's good to see you all in here commenting. Love you guys. Have a good evening.
Bye.